Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Dorian, and you're listening to Highway to Scale. It's a podcast in which we explore the ins and outs of business success and where we cover topics like validating business ideas, exploring different management styles, building products, launching them on the market, raising capital, and scaling your business. Now, before we get to the main part, please consider subscribing and get in touch with me if you want to be a guest on the show. In today's episode, I'm joined by Romain, who is the CEO of Didomi. It's a company which builds technology that allows organizations to place customer consent at the core of their strategy. By making consent and preferences easily accessible, companies benefit from compliant customer data while seeing higher engagement and increased user trust. And consumers, on the other hand, they are free to choose what data to share and how to stay connected to their favorite brands across various touchpoints. In this podcast, Romain will tell us more about the adtech market, what's important to keep in mind when it comes to GDPR and user privacy, and also what makes trust one of the most critical elements of building successful teams. So let's cut the intro and let's jump right into the episode to see what Romain can teach us about building a business. So great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, and great summary of what Didomi does, and happy to be here.
So, before we dig deeper into your company, into your business practices, and basically what you do as a CEO, can you tell me a little bit more about the company? How did it all start?
Sure. So, Didomi is a company specialized in privacy. We do actually one thing within privacy, which is consent management. We help our clients collect consent. We store it for on their behalf. And what is probably more important, we make sure that the consent is correctly distributed across their system so that whenever you use personal data, you're confident that the user has said yes or no for this specific data processing. So, like kind of a niche aspect of privacy, but one that is really important and key. Because at the end of the day, that's what people understand about privacy, that's what they can control, and that's what they touch on every website, mobile application on which they navigate. So we decided to focus our efforts on this key aspect of privacy, and that has worked well for us. So we started 4 years ago, 1 year before GDPR went live, and have nicely grown since then.
So what makes your company better than the competition? What makes your services stand out?
A number of things. So first, we decided from day one to build an open platform, which means that we have kind of a developer-centric approach of our product, where it always starts with what we put within the developer documentation, and really we try to be the preferred solution for developers. And I think that's an approach that stands out from what our competitors have done. Some of our competitors, US or European, have taken a more product-centric approach, focusing more on your UI, how many buttons you can click and configure. We went the other way. We decided to focus on the core features that could make it easy for a developer to embed consent management within their app. Be it on the web, on more native environments. And so today we have dedicated SDK for Android, iOS, Unity, connected television environment. So we really try to make it easy for developers to take into account consent within their app, and that has worked well. And so on top of that, obviously, we also serve other forms of customers. So more business-oriented customers like marketing people, data protection officers, but they actually need a different set of features than developers. So as a platform, we try to solve for all these needs and not only the needs of the data protection officer, for instance.
That's a great approach because as a marketer, a lot of those tools, are specifically based to target me. But in the end, all we do is say, okay, we need these types of functionalities, and then we go to our developers. Okay, can you please implement all of those into the website?
Right. We noticed that very early in our history, and actually, like the one who suffers, the one who has really like a pain putting privacy in place is the developer, and really making it easy for them first to understand what's going on, why they need to do that, what are their options, is really critical. And so it doesn't mean that we don't serve like marketers well, but I think in our DNA we also care a lot about developers. And so we are, for instance, the only company out there which has a public developer documentation. So we basically display everything publicly on developers.didomi.io. And so before you start using us, you can really understand how deep we can go for you as a developer, and how we will help you integrate that and make it like a seamless user experience, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so the entire process of implementation is very, very simplified, so that every part of the company that wants to use your service can easily understand it and implement into their platforms.
It's as easy as possible. It's still like for some companies a complex topic, and also like this open platform approach also means that we have open API. So we don't cover like every possible consent use cases out there because there are so many of them. But we at least provide like a foundation on which you can build a number of things. So open APIs, correctly documented, like leaving you a lot of room to customize, to go a bit deeper, to exactly solve for your use case. And we think that's the right approach on this market. Obviously, the more we grow, the more time goes, the more able we are to support a number of new use cases. But there are still things we don't know, and we are still like uncovering as we move forward. And this open platform approach has really served us well from day one to really understand better our market and make like more informed choices about our roadmap, where we need to go, just by listening to our clients, looking at what developers would need. So, for instance, we are building right now a Flutter SDK. We noticed that some of our large companies in our customer portfolio are trying to build on top of Flutter. So this is how we detect also new opportunities and align our roadmap with it.
So, how did you start? When did you decide? Okay, I see that privacy is a problem. I want to start my own company. What was the trigger? What was that problem that you saw?
So Didomi is my second startup. I built a first startup with Jawad, who is also Didomi CTO in the adtech space, so advertising technologies. And so we spent a bunch of years in the adtech space, working for a large American company which had purchased or acquired our first startup. And that's where we saw the privacy wave growing. So adtech is probably the first, the main vertical which has been impacted by privacy for various reasons, but mainly because there was so much personal data flowing into the adtech pipes without any form of control, and so obviously like a lot of problems from a privacy standpoint happened within the adtech space, and we were there, and we saw that from the inside. We also saw that for a lot of adtech companies, it was actually a complex problem. So it's not because people wanted to steal data or to abuse of personal data that things went the way they were. But so change was needed basically, and when we saw GDPR coming, so actually GDPR was written in this in its last form in April 2016, so 2 years before 2018, and I had the chance to read this text maybe a bit before everyone else, and I realized that something was going to happen. So the change that was required for the adtech space would come from regulation, which was not obvious at first, but I think GDPR is a very simple text. So anyone who has a bit of time can read it and will understand most of it. So it's not that complex. And that's how I like saw the opportunity. I realized that change would come out of this important piece of regulation, and so the timing was right to start working on these topics. Obviously, I wasn't the only one to spot that opportunity. A lot of privacy tech companies have emerged over the years, and that's great because I think technology has reached a point where it was needed to like stop and think about privacy for a while before moving forward. And so like all things coagulated, I would say, around the GDPR, and that's I think GDPR acted as a trigger for a lot of people to start thinking about privacy. But if you look at the technology history, privacy has always been there. It's been really core of the first World Wide Web that we know. The father of the internet really had cared a lot about privacy, and since it has always been there. There were some weak signals that you could see that this wave of consumer asking for more privacy was born years ago. I working at tech. We carefully monitored the rate of ad blockers adoption. I also followed very closely the way Apple moved all their communication towards being a privacy first company, and that's the number one argument they use to sell you iPhones today. But really, it started in 2015, so it's been some time that they focused on privacy as their number one differentiator. So all these things were there, and I think with GDPR, this wave started to break, and we happened to have detected it with the right timing, which is the number one reason why a startup succeed, in my opinion.
So you mentioned that you started Didomi 4 years ago. CEOs usually say that the first 5 years are the hardest ones. Can you tell me what were some of the main milestones, or maybe what were some of the main mistakes that you did during those 4 years that, let's say, with the knowledge that you have now, you wouldn't do again?
So obviously, you do a lot of mistakes along the way. That's normal, and I'm not sure everyone will have the same journey. So each startup journey is fairly unique. We did it the hard way at first. So we were bootstrapped, so meaning that we are entirely financed by our clients, and so our ability to generate sales meant that we would be able to continue the journey. So that has helped us be very disciplined in the first days of Didomi, really focusing on our clients, uncovering this market, and I believe that's also what explains in the end why we did it, where we managed to grow. A lot of privacy tech companies started with some form of ideology. So the idea that they wanted to build this better world, which we all want to, but really didn't take into account the maturity of their persona, the market in general. And then, to be honest, up to this point, when you're a marketer, privacy is not an obvious thing. It's complex. It's linked to compliance. The benefit of it is really hard to perceive at first. And typically it represents a lot of disruption in your daily habits, the way you operate as a marketer. So it requires a lot of thinking before moving forward. So we understood that really early on and tried to focus our products on simple benefits, simple use cases. So for instance, one of the first products we launched was the cookie consent module, which helps you collect cookie consent in a way that works for you. So where everyone else probably works on the compliance of it, on the legal text and so on. We did that, but we also started to build consent analytics. So the ability to measure what is your consent rate, what is your what we call addressability rate, so how many people bounce, what works, like if you put a logo, if you use this type of format, how does it drive your consent rate up or down? And these kind of things we learned them from our early clients. So they came to us and asked, okay, I'm a marketer, so I need to understand what's going on. Tell me what's going on. And so with this open-minded approach, I think we managed to solve each challenge one by one and to build the product that was required. Instead of focusing on things we all had in mind. We want end users to have more control, to have full transparency over the way their personal data is managed. But I think this comes gradually. So as a company, you don't transform your operations overnight. It takes a lot of time because it carries a form of disruption. So when you stop receiving personal data as a marketer, suddenly your metrics fall, your incentives are wrongly placed, so you start doing stupid things. And so to help our clients move towards privacy, it needed to go in small steps, and that's how we built the product at Didomi. Plus, we any other startups, we had a lot of challenges, difficulties. So hiring in the early days is really, really complex. So hiring good developers, good salespeople, it's an act of faith from people joining the company. A lot of I think time invested in making sure you basically when you're a 5-people team, any new joiners has the potential to break down the whole edifice. So the whole team can fall apart if you have someone who comes in and who doesn't fit.
True.
So that's hard. That's really hard. And so we stayed with we didn't grow the team that much up until early 2020. So not so long ago, we were only 10 to 12 people within the team, but still managed to grow the revenue very nicely in a very efficient way. But I think my learning is that this core team, so the early team of any startup is formed of very a different type of people. So and you need to find these people, and it's hard. And so that you need to know that, and don't stop because it's too hard. It will take time. It will you will make mistakes. You will sacrifice some skills over others, and that's okay. It doesn't prevent you from succeeding. Specifically to our to Didomi, we had one interesting thing that happened, which I'm sharing here because I think it shows that anything can happen in the early days of a startup. We were sued by a patent troll in the US. And it's very scary because one day I see that somebody dropped a lawsuit with the New York state court and stating that we were infringing their intellectual property. They had over a patent. It's what you call a patent troll. So people who patent stupid things and
basically everything. So
everything and come after you and ask you for money, and for a lot of money. For us, it was hundreds of thousands of dollars of royalties, and that's scary because it comes out of nowhere. It's in the US, and so US law is tough. So it's really hard to read from the outside, and so I don't know if you watched Suits, the TV show, but it happens exactly like that. So it's the world where only money reigns, and so we had no money, and at the same time we couldn't agree on these terms because it was basically extortion, and so it took us 2 years to fight this patent troll. We won in the New York court. We went to the federal judges and won again. But all this process took us 2 years, and actually we ended up spending these hundreds of thousands of US dollars in
Yeah,
defending
for lawyers and all that
for
process.
lawyers and for defending ourselves. But it was really hard when it came, and really like the day we received this complaint, we thought it was the end, it was over, and but like we absorbed the shock and defended ourselves one step at a time, and just like continued fighting, and when they appealed that, after having lost in the New York courts, we kept fighting, and at the end we won. So I think I like take a lot of interesting lessons out of this experience. So anything can happen, but if you take it like one step at a time, at the end it can work out well. And even if it sounds like impossible and something really complex to solve, nothing is like there is nothing you can't really do if you just take it like one day at a time, one step at a time, and that's at the end it works out.
Yeah, it made you and the company more resilient. But one of the things you said, you started as a bootstrapped company.
Yeah.
Can you tell me how did you get your first clients? What was the process? You said you when it comes to hiring, you spend a lot of time hiring good developers and good salespeople. Were you primarily focused on having a great sales team in the beginning, or did your sales process look a little bit different?
We are very sales centric at Didomi, and I really believe that you should focus on sales, because like the future of your company will depend on your ability to master your sales process. And so like the earliest you invest in that, the better you are as a founder. So we build the product with our sales. So we really so for instance we thanks to like going to market, meeting a lot of potential clients, we spotted a vertical that had a much more urgent need than other verticals on content management. It was the publisher and media vertical, and so we for the first, like I would say, almost 18 months, we only focused on this vertical. So we really like went really deep in capturing all clients within this vertical, and
before you started expanding to others.
Right, and so we like investing in our sales was really critical to find out, uncover this opportunity, and by sales I really mean direct sales. So taking the phone, calling your prospects, approaching them via like emails, targeted emails, and so on. Going to events, running webinars to generate leads, and like doing it the hard way, and really like mastering each step of your sales process, from detecting interest to transforming that into a lead, a qualified lead, and then moving to a demo, and so we basically now we have a very processed way of organizing our sales, and
Great.
and that's needed if you really want to scale. So there is no scale if you don't master this like this obvious process of your company. And mastering means to have the right people, to have the right tools, to have the right reporting, and so you don't build that overnight as well. So it takes a lot of iterations. So at first it's pretty basic, and then you, like for instance, we invested very early in our history into Salesforce. So we and really I think it's the number one reason why we have really scaled fast at this point, because we had the information, our sales information was correctly centralized, like formed, and and really like these simple things at the end pay a lot and help you like grow and keep growing over time. Because if you don't, I think you can grow nicely for a while, and then you will like you hit a big bump in the road and have to pause for a while until you figure out why you've paused. And so if you want to keep scaling, I think you need to keep investing in your sales capabilities, in your processes, and obviously in the team and having the right people that sell your product. Having a strong sales capability is also the best way to make your product better, because you'll detect a lot of things on the market. So like being on the market means to capture every signal that this market is sending, and if you're the first one to capture them, you can really adapt the product in a nice way and be first on the market. So it's not only about feedback about your current product, but also all the gaps that exist, all the opportunities that you haven't spotted, that the market will tell you about. And so you can have the best product team. I think if they are not helped by a strong sales team, I think at some point you'll miss things.
Yeah, one doesn't work without the other. That's true.
Absolutely.
So in 2020, you switched the story. You stopped being bootstrapped, and you got, if I'm not mistaken, 5 million euros of outside capital. What made you switch?
It's a matter of market conditions and ambition. So we want to lead our category. So the consent and preference management category is emerging really fast. It's a global software category. So basically every company out there with personal data has probably a consent use case where they need help. And so it's a massive opportunity. And being bootstrapped, we realized that it was going to be much harder to accelerate and to go and capture this market, to be leader in this category. Why? Because you're never the only one on your market. You have competition, and the competition can go pretty fast at capturing the market. So if they sign up clients first, it's going to be harder to win the clients back, especially for a product like consent management, which is fairly sticky. So if you solve your consent use case, like you don't really have a reason to switch or change unless the product you chose is really not fit, doesn't work, or if you're really unhappy. But it's always harder to have people switch from one product to the other than to adopt a first product. And so with that in mind, we realized that we needed to accelerate and needed to invest more in our product marketing and sales capabilities. So that's like the main reason why we raised money. And so we had a very ambitious business plan that we presented to venture capitalists, and it worked well for us because we actually delivered strong growth in 2020. Up to the point where I'm happy to announce that we recently closed our Series B round. So we are continuing to accelerate with Didomi, and so this time we raised our Series B of $40 million with the idea of.
That's great.
It's really happy about it. It's more fuel for growth. So we are in a position where we can keep investing at a very strong and ambitious pace. And with our eyes set on the US and North America, because Canada also is a very interesting market for us. And basically the idea to be European leader and to go and conquer the US, because we feel the timing is right for us to accelerate over there. And so with ambition, you need to be fair and to be honest with yourself. So you can't really grow fast and accelerate without investing a lot in your business.
Yeah.
And so we we are going down that path very very seriously, and are committed to emerge as a leader in our category.
Yeah, that's great. I'm really looking forward to seeing you, as you said, conquer the US market, and having a strong European company. That's always a good sign.
Yeah, for once, being European is kind of an unfair advantage, because privacy was really born in Europe with GDPR, and so we carry a lot of experience, and so I think this experience is missing in the US right now. So our product is probably much more mature than whatever you find in the US, because we've been it's been 3 years now since GDPR went live, and so we've seen the market progress over the years. Data protection authorities start to fine people and so on. So we have a very strong understanding of what works and what doesn't.
Yeah. So we've talked a bit about your company. Let's focus now on you. How would you describe your management style, and what are you currently focused on the most as a CEO?
Sure. So my management style is fairly simple. I really like when people are autonomous, and so I feel that my role as a manager is to make sure people can assume their responsibilities, so are given as much room as needed to really lead on their role, and so I'm kind of very supportive of everyone that works within Didomi. I try to be as close as possible from everyone, and so I invest a lot of time making sure that people get correctly onboarded when they join the team. Something that proves challenging when you grow fast and when the team grows fast, but something that I think is really critical. I try to be very accessible, to also not get too far from what happens on a daily what happens daily in the company, the small trouble and challenges that everyone is having. So I try to confront myself to everything of that. I try to stay close to our customers, but really what I think is critical for success is to make sure that you have people under you who are really empowered, who can take initiatives and bring the company to where it needs to be on their own, without too much need for permission.
So how involved are you in day-to-day operational stuff?
I always have a say, but really I'm just another voice in the process. So especially for product management, we have built a very strong and nice product function, and really I'm just an opinion among other opinions. So I try not to impose my opinion. Sometimes when there is a doubt or a need to decide, obviously it falls under my responsibility to say which direction we are going. But in general, I prefer when the product is able to complete their product work autonomously, taking my perspective into account, but not the only perspective, because I also realize that while I may have the vision for the company, more and more I also I don't have the full truth, and so it's really important that my perspective is taken into account together with all the perspectives coming from our clients, the team, market research, and so on.
Yeah, when it comes to hiring new people, you said you value people who can take initiative, who can take responsibility. What are maybe some of the other aspects that you're looking for in candidates for new positions?
For instance, we promoted flexible and remote work very early on in Didomi history, and I think that's a form of a consequence of what I just described, which is if you really want people to be responsible and autonomous, you should trust them, and so people who are able to work remotely in a completely autonomous fashion are generally people who show the type of attitude and skills that I described. So it's a good proxy as well to find out talents. So I had no doubt that developers, software developers would meet that type of requirements. But I was more surprised to see that you can actually hire remote salespeople or remote marketing people and find the same type of attitudes towards work. So we don't monitor how many hours you put into your work, but we kind of build processes and objectives in a way that make your work very clear. So you know where you need to go, what is your goal, and from there leave you fairly autonomous as a team member. How do you detect that? It's complex, and so the more you hire, the more you learn, but also the more chance you have to make mistakes. So unfortunately, it happens that there is a mismatch. So we try to have a hiring process that is very comprehensive. You usually have a use case you need to complete. You need to work to show us how you would perform within the team. You end up meeting a lot of different people, your colleagues, your manager, typically me at the end of the process as well. And so we try to minimize the risk of hiring you within the team. But when mismatch happen, which they always do, we also try to react fast. So we just admit our mistake and move on, which is always painful and takes a lot of time. But you need to act fast if you really want to maintain this strong team and positive attitude toward work.
I really like that as you said, focused on trust, because it leads to everything else. When you have trust between your team members and you have great processes, then you can grow as a company.
Right. I think that's the key. And trust is really hard to build and really easy to lose.
Exactly.
And so we try to make that very clear to everyone who joins the company. We'll trust them without limit. And so in return, it's very demanding to receive that a level of trust. And so you need to it needs to work with you, and it doesn't for everyone. So especially when you're used to have a very a strong management leash, it's complex. But I believe it's the best model, and one model that scales really well. Other models require you to have larger offices, a lot of middle management, and brings a lot of complexity into the scaling model. Basing things on trust is really rewarding, because you can maintain a fairly flat organization, at the same time really have people think creatively about the challenges we meet, and so each in their little corner will figure out part of the problem without really you having to dictate what things they need to work on. So it's much the more we grow, the easier it gets for me, at least from a management perspective. But it's really nice as well for the founder to see that your team can solve the challenges on their own.
That's a great mindset to have. Now, we've talked about GDPR and privacy at the beginning, but I have a couple more questions about it, because as you said in the beginning, GDPR is a fairly simple text to understand. But I think that a lot of people haven't taken the time to read it, because it's, all those terms and conditions on basically every application. You just click, okay, I understand, and then you go. to the next step. What seems to be the problem with GDPR? Because it seems to me like people don't care until something big happens, like the Facebook scandal with Cambridge Analytica.
Right. I think people especially in companies and large organizations, but as well as in startups, I think they misunderstand GDPR. GDPR, like the risk of getting fined by a data protection authority, is really low. Even though it happens. So in France, we have like a number of, for instance, startups that went fined. I have one example in mind, a startup called Nestor, which was fined for 20,000 euros because they sent unsolicited emails to 600,000 people. So the fine was not that high, so 20,000 euros for a startup, it's massive, but it's not like a million. But like the damage that was caused on this startup was probably like impossible to recover from. So they ended up being acquired very like a couple of months after. So what I think it tells us is that the main risk is never the fine. The main risk is your reputation. And we talked about trust, so it's really easy to lose trust, and it's like you don't come back from losing trust from your customers, and so I think that's the way you need to understand GDPR. It's a matter of reputation. It's almost like a matter of branding, if you understand brand in an extensive fashion, so as a startup, like what reputation do you want to have with your customers? You may not care about privacy, but if your customers do, and if at some point they realize you're doing stupid things with their data, you're going to pay a massive price to that. While if you structure yourself correctly, so if you embed privacy from day one, if you just like privacy is about respect. So how do I respect my customers? How do I explain correctly what I'm doing with their data? How do I give them control over what I'm doing with their data? Which is very natural. So as an individual, you always expect that from any company. And we actually do surveys nowadays, and we can clearly see that in every survey that we do. It's like two-thirds of people are really paying attention to what you do with their data, and a lot like switch when they don't feel that you're doing well with their data. So I have some figures here in UK and France and Ireland where we committed we asked surveyors to ask this question to 4,000 people.
Okay.
We had this result. So 70% will not buy from someone if they are concerned about their privacy behavior. So the risk there is you just have people bounce, or you lose them in your conversion process. And same results for purchasing behavior, where 70% have not gone through with the purchase due to privacy concerns. So whenever you ask for just too much information, so your birth date, your like these simple boxes that you don't really pay attention to, but they can have a direct impact on your revenue, on your purchasing funnel. And so this is privacy. This is the privacy you should care about as a marketer, as any company should invest a bit in this field. And GDPR is a set of rights that we as European citizens have. We don't enforce them that much, so we don't really use our rights to erase our data or port our data from one company to another. But we do pay attention, and we vote with our feet, as we say in France. So we just turn our back and leave companies that we don't think we can trust. So I think you can create an environment where people realize what you do with their data, agree to it. What I found really interesting and counterintuitive is that when you display a clear choice, yes, no, it creates trust. So people are appreciate and reward you from asking honestly and fairly a question, and so it's not that bad. So if you do your work correctly, a lot of people will say yes as they did
Of course.
before, and nothing will change, and that's okay. That's the type of privacy experience we want, and as a company, if we manage to have more yes than no, we will be better than the competition.
Of course.
So that's how we see privacy, and I think that's the way startups in particular should look at GDPR. It's a text that had a very important education effect within Europe. So internet users from all conditions are starting to get educated to understand that okay, their personal data is really being used intensively by some companies. They are for some of them it's still very early, but they realize that a lot of the value that is generated with their personal data is not getting back to them, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something companies should try to think about, and to really do simple things that would create trust from their customers. Not overcomplicate things. Like the legal requirements of GDPR are complex, and so if you ask a lawyer or your data protection officer, obviously they will do something very strict because they don't want to take any chance at with respect to the text. But I think there is something.
Yeah, but when it comes to users, you need to be direct, as you said.
You need to be direct, and for instance, if you look at the way consent is defined within GDPR, it should be informed. So what it means is that people need to understand what's going on. And so if you put a text that is too complex that nobody can understand, it's not an informed consent. So you miss the point. So you're not collecting valid consent according to GDPR, even though you try to minimize your legal risk, and that's I think the beauty of GDPR. So at the end of the day, if you do things in a natural way, in a way that that speaks to you and your customers, there is a good chance you're good to go with respect to compliance.
Yeah, I like what you said. It's about branding. You don't want to be known as the company that's been misusing customer private information. That's the whole point.
No, right. But at the same time, it's also going to be a form of norm, so a standard. So I think it's there to stay. So as a company, the later you invest in that, the more chance there is for you to be overwhelmed by the competition who has understood that before, and so it's going to be a form of a standard. So for instance, Google is going to make sure that you respect your users' privacy. Apple is already doing it, and so the standard will be applied to you from a lot of your partners, customers, and so it's a good investment. So what I'm saying is that if you want to have a future-proof organization, give it some thoughts and try to figure out what it means for you as a company, how you can generate trust from your partners, your customers, and so on. And there is a good chance that along the way you'll end up being GDPR compliant.
Okay, Roman. We're almost at the end, so I have just a few more questions. Can you tell me what advice would you give to new startup owners who are just looking to put their products on the market?
Go and meet your customers as early as possible before you even start working on the product. It's always beneficial, and it's never easy. It's never easy to have a conversation with someone and try to sell them something, especially something that doesn't exist, where you have very confused ideas. But if you do this first step right, then the rest is going to be easier and easier. Like that's my number one recommendation. And so focusing on generating revenue rather than raising funds is also a good idea, because like your startup journey will be only about generating revenue, not about generating raising funds. And so it's also a very rewarding way of building a company. Having customers buy from you is very rewarding. Having investors investing in your business is nice, but it's always the beginning of something. So, like the day after you've closed your massive fundraise, you have to start working really hard to climb this really high mountain. Sales is always rewarding. Your clients are happy. They drop like very nice comments on the internet about your product. It's good. Like it's nice to have happy customers. It's a form of relationship that is really interesting. And so I strongly recommend to any startup founders to really spend time with their clients, selling and making them happy.
So one last question. What can we expect from Didomi in the, let's say, next couple of years? You've already mentioned expanding to America. What else can we expect?
We are investing strongly in our go-to-market for North America. So expect us there in a vocal way. And so we at the same time we stay true to our European roots. So we want to keep leading in Europe, keep servicing our European clients with the best product. We think it's the very early days of privacy, and so what the use cases we are solving now are like basic and are starting to get more advanced with some larger companies. We really want to have the go-to product for any consent and preference use case you may have in your company. So from a product standpoint, we keep investing in that because it's what people understand. So what you show them, what you give them control on is what they understand. And so as a company, we'll keep investing in this core idea.
Okay, Roman, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast, and thank you for sharing me all of these insights.
Thanks a lot for the invitation. It's been a pleasure.
And we are done. If you stuck with us until the end, here are a few key takeaways from this episode that I want you to remember. Number 1, your sales process is one of your most important assets. The earlier you start investing in it, the easier will it be to grow your company and improve your products and services. Because the result of a great sales process isn't just a new client or a new customer. You'll also get information about new market opportunities and gaps you haven't yet spotted. Number 2, although trust is difficult to build and easy to lose, it's a key component of great teams. Basing your company culture on trust is rewarding in the long term because it promotes ownership and dedication among team members, and it also allows you to have a flatter organizational structure. And number 3, personal data protection is a matter of reputation. When done correctly, it opens more doors and leads to better relationships with your customers and investors. And you really never want to be known as a company that's misusing personal information. It's just not a good look. Now, before you sign off, don't forget to subscribe so you get notified when we publish new episodes, and leave us a review if you enjoyed this episode and learned something new. It'll be highly appreciated. Also, if you want to be a guest on the show, shoot me an email or hit me up on LinkedIn. My contact info is down in the description. And that's it. I'm Dorian. You've been listening to Highway to Scale, and I'll see you all in the next episode.